anything over there? Does anybody want to like shift or move, or this might suck and then you'll have to leave? Maybe. So I grew up in a construction family. This is my website full of a bunch of links to other things if you're curious. My name is Joseph. Got into information architecture by theology and philosophy. So just kind of wandering through the world, wondering about things. But again, the construction family is what I spent so much time looking at a screen. I wanted to make something that was tangible. I can touch it. Apps are kind of like that. But the physicality of this got really curious. So that's why I got into this. Yeah? How many of you guys have one? Anybody? All right. So this will probably be really not that advanced. But I just wanted to give an opportunity to turn the bot on, have it print something, and talk about this. Does that sound fair? And better in more intimate settings, so no, I'm just kidding. All right, so that's the whole goal. More and more after having gotten this built and been more public about it, people like Peter will come up and say, hey, can you print this for me? And I knew that I crossed the my mother-in-law calls this my robot, right? How's your robot? It's awesome, you know. And she, Sharon. Oh, 4966. So this is a universal connector kit between like Tinker Toys and Legos and all the other stuff. And this kind of hacking is what gets at least me so excited about what's happening here, right? So my tip over the edge was just got some client projects done, and I was like, hey, to my wife, right? I want to buy one of these. She's like, no, you know, China makes enough cheap plastic stuff. Let's leave it there. And so I kept going, and so I started to find on, you know, this is Makerbot's website. So I went with a Makerbot because I just wanted a kit. And to be honest, this is a Thing-O-Matic, and I have a print. It's going to start here in just a little bit. It's heating up right now. I have a Thing-O-Matic, so it's that one. They've now come out with a replicator, which is this one. The replicator doesn't make you put it together by any means. And almost everything here was placed. You know, every screw comes individual, and you sit there for a couple days putting it together. And this is the wonderful, joyous sound of a Makerbot, right? If you sit next to this for a number of hours, you start to really love it. Because you're working, and it's working, and there's been a really kind of interesting relationship for me about having a robot. I go downstairs and start working, and then it makes stuff. And so there's like, I haven't really figured that out yet. But being a philosophy guy, that's an interesting correlation, okay? So there's so many implications for being able to print these things. So what's happening here, just from a base, who's never seen one of these in real life before? Yeah. So when I bought my kit, I'd seen one in real life before, right? What's happening is that it layers out an object and then prints like a 4 mil layer of plastic, okay? And it just prints it and prints it and prints it and prints it. This is an extrusion printer. There are liquid printers that run on lasers, and they solidify the material as the lasers pass through. There are powder printers that print in big powder like vats or squares. And as you're printing, it also glues portions of that plastic together, and you can reach in and just pick out your object. As these are advancing, you're getting to the point where you're able to build domes and tables and overhangs, right? This can't do that yet. This one can't. If you had another head, and they've come out with these now. I got it last summer. If you have another head, you can print a second material simultaneously. So you can print like a PLA. I don't know what that actually means. Everybody just calls it PLA. And then you can throw it in a vat of water, and it'll dissolve. So you can start to print domes and overhangs that are crazy and so forth. So this has become a deep friend of mine. I usually carry it, right? Because you're sitting at a coffee shop and you have an idea for something. You're like, I don't know, about this big. And you're modeling it. What this has done, at least for me, is got me to think in 3 dimensions. I'm pretty unhappy with almost all the objects that I engage with now, right? And being able to have it around is wonderful. I mean, it's really very cool. But the challenge is really your modeling skills. So if you don't have a bot yet, you might think that you have to wait until you get one to start doing your modeling. But I would say start immediately. Start now. Start modeling stuff. And there's a community out there that will start here. Different posts. TB Bruiser. Are you guys familiar with this guy, Tony Bruiser? Huge on this site called Thingiverse. This is run by Makerbot. What you can do here is you can go and post all your designs, right? And very, very quickly, people will pick these up. So you see, these are popular things. These are newest things, as these say. But these are derivatives. So somebody grabbed somebody else's file, jacked with it, and then put it back up, right? So you get all kinds of weird memes on this. When Colbert was on, Colbert ended up on a rabbit, and he ended up on everything, right? Because they took a really advanced laser and modeled his head from the outside. And so his file is up there, and you can just grab it and shove it on stuff. So he's on buildings, and he's on everything. So that changes some of what, So that's Thingiverse. This was the first print that I got into. It's a multi-stage print. It's really, really big in comparison to a lot of the other stuff. And I said, well, the space shuttle was just ending, so I'll print one, right? Because it was right at that time that it was. And what I learned is that you have to mod and tune your bot. So you get it together and it looks like a Makerbot, but it doesn't mean it performs like anything worth having around yet. So at least, I would say easily 4 times the time put into building it has been put into tuning it. You guys that have one, have you been, that's an understatement? I said at least. The cupcake, so the cupcake was, it was prior to its predecessor, and yeah, it's worse. Those are challenging. So when you're printing these tall objects, right, this came in a bunch of different files. And somebody had grabbed it off of Google's 3D Warehouse. This has happened a lot, actually. You grab it off of 3D Warehouse, you pull it in to any modeling program you have, and then edit it, mess with it, right? So I was having the darndest time getting this largest fuel tank to print because I couldn't get it to stick to the platform. And as this platform's moving, and it gets higher, the weight at the top is molten, and it shifts off. So you go, I would set them up, go to dinner, it'd be 2 hours later. I come back, and it was like everywhere. Little strings of ABS, and my wife was like, did it work? No, it didn't work yet. So here's what's happening on Thingiverse. Like, this, I think, is brilliant. I don't know why I didn't think of it, and I don't know if you enjoy that in your life, but on Thingiverse, there's a lot of this for me. I'm like, yes! You want to be able to live stream your printer, right? I'm actually serious, because I'd set my iPad up on one book, and it's just the right angle. Yeah. I want to leave, but I want to be able to check in, but I want to be able to tell somebody to go turn it off. If I can. Yeah. Eric and I just met outside, and you're building Wrap, which is a good chance to bring this up. Yeah. So Wrap is an aggressive community. Would you call them aggressive? They were very aggressive in helping each other. And the point is, you say I want to build one, and then people start to print you parts, and then you get all your parts together, and then you can help print other people's parts, right? So that's kind of the. I got a new one. Yeah. So as your, it's almost an intimate crowd. It's a little weird. So I got this thing. It's in my basement, right? And the Google Groups for this, I think this carabiner is fantastic. The Google Groups forum is really, really involved. People who are doing this I found this and then decided I can get one of these because I was watching people ask questions and getting their answers. Because you have this ridiculous question about some stupid thing that you've never seen before in your life, you can't describe to your best friend, and you got to get it fixed because you want to print something, right? And so you put your question up here, and 10, 15 minutes later, you've got 7 responses, and you're like, thank you, right? So this is a huge reason that it was worth. Yeah. So what you're saying is, yeah, there's an intense desire to make a printer that makes printers, right? So people are. I think it's awesome. People are. The motors are going to be challenging. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, what you're saying is you go to a third world country and you print your printer and then you keep printing printers, right? So yeah, they replicate. So the challenge is the boards right now. I've seen, if you're paying attention to this, this group and a couple others, the boards, the solder boards, right? They're trying to build these. We've got an intense. Anybody work at the local 3D companies? Stratasys or someone that just IPO'd out of Maple Plain? Forget their name. Protolabs. It's a little different printing approach, but we're not short for talent in this town. I'd love to talk to you guys. What was I saying? I don't remember. Oh, replicating. So one of the guys had taken a Dremel and mounted it to this board, or mounted it to the y-axis, and he's trying to drill, Dremel out your solder boards. Yeah. So at some point, you're going to be able to then just solder this stuff together. So some of these plates are soldered. This component, right? It just comes in a bunch of pieces, and you sit down and solder it together. So it's not far off to be able to go somewhere else with it. And if you think that you were just in front of 3D printing right now, these guys are trying to take sand and make it really, really intelligent. Okay? So that you could throw an object in a sandbox. Let's see. And basically, I played that. I would have to connect to the internet. But each of these boxes has sensors that recognizes whether another box is next to it or an object is next to it. So what they're doing is they're going to this point where you're able to literally throw an object inside of a vat of this, right? And it will model the exterior of the object for you and give you a print file. So that becomes the next challenge is, again, how do you get the files to make, right? Whatever it is you're trying to make. So there are scanners. You guys familiar with these 3D scanners? They're $1,500. You can get them pretty, there's a plate that spins with a box that sits out here with 2 or 3 lasers, and it spins and it's stupid slow, but it works. And then you can just take that file and run it through your processes for whatever printer you're printing on, and whatever modules or components that you have connected at the time. I do not have a heated build platform on this because I had very poor success, and there's thousands others like me with that particular platform. But then you mod them and you play with them and you goof off and yeah, interesting. All right. Yes. Microsoft Connect hacked into what is called Replicator G, which is an open source platform that powers it's not Xcode, it's G-code. G-code out of Replicator G, yo. And G-code is what powers this. And if you're connected like with a head machine to this, then it runs a little differently than if you're running off of an SD card. That's what I have here. So you can just plug it into the wall and just start pumping objects off. So this is almost done. And this was the one object that I had in mind when I said it's time to get a printer. So we're going to let that cool down. It prints at about 250 C, and the base platform's about 120. So it's like 4 and 2, something in that range. I have a bike rack on the top of my car. That's degrees Celsius. Yeah, that's Celsius. Yeah, so it's like 430 Fahrenheit, somewhere in that range. Yeah, it turns into... Here, we'll start to pass this. This is an object that happened on. I don't know, there's a lot of you, so I don't know if you want to wash your hands after this. University of Minnesota logo, right? You just start printing logos. So this is why I got into this thing. I don't know if you guys want to just start passing stuff. Yeah, it's the ABS. So it's like a Lego. Lego is an extruded ABS on a flat-walled. You can kind of decide in your programming how you want the object to be as well. Yeah. You can choose the layers. So like the exterior layers that you have. Oh, you guys. Oh, hold on. You guys all started in the front, so. It's just a bunch of stuff. So this is a P51. It's not too bad, right? My father-in-law's, you should print a lot of those for your nephews. Anyway, stuff. Yeah, so it has to come in as an STL. Some of this stuff is just other people's. Like this is, you guys familiar with Nervous System? They're a group of 2 designers. This one's kind of cool. They're building algorithms that replicate nature. And so they'll give you this ability to like run a bunch of sliders and objects will change on the fly. Just Nervous. It's just Nervous with a dash between every letter. Nervous.com. So this is a bracelet, but it's very organic in terms of its existence. I will say that. And I just dipped this in acetone. That's what the weird finish is. So back to this clip. I have a bike rack on top of my car. Who has a bike rack on top of their car? Yeah, you've seen these things. They have like the deadhead bike racks where you have to pull off the front tire, right? So what happens to that skewer? It just dances. So there's like, we'll say 10 to 1, and we're being generous. You see a bike rack with no bike in it. And that skewer, so I just, irritated by the sound, started cutting up. My initial prototype was some electrical tubing that I got at Home Depot. And I started going towards these clips. So it's a clip that you can grab onto, right? And this is down the prototype lane, right? Far enough to the point where I'm really happy with how it works. So it's that was the idea, right? Like, what if you could print stuff? So the dream, and I haven't quite got there yet, the dream is to come home and look at the orders from the day and just queue up the orders and then ship them out. So shipping has become, oh, you broke the Mars rover. Can't believe this. Yeah, print another one. That is a little like, well, should I give you guys these? Whatever. Print another one. Yeah, so that's been so I've been using the constraints of the shipping of the Postal Service basically to start reimagining objects, right? So in one of these boxes there's a tape dispenser. And that's kind of the most aggressive reimagination of objects, is the tape dispenser. So I don't know who has it right now. Yeah. So I wanted to be able to print it so that I could stick it in an envelope, still get it to like dispense, right? But not have to have, I want to be able to ship a tape dispenser for 34 cents, right? Here you go. So, yeah, so I've played with putting some of this stuff online. The clips actually will sell. They sell. I can buy, you play with AdWords. So I'm working AdWords in, or from Facebook, you can grab some traffic and dump people on your stuff, and a certain portion of them convert, which is a fun thing, right? Like, that's the next question. What do you do with this thing? This is my wife. What do you do with this thing? And I haven't played with Etsy yet. I've got a couple Kickstarter projects, right? Oh, that's business cards. So you set it up on like you put your business cards in there. That's a roll. That's what this roll on the side is connected on. So Etsy, I haven't played much on Etsy. I got my own site and kind of buy traffic, and then Kickstarter, I think is Kickstarter and this thing together starts to get really curious. So I got a couple of projects that are. I'm trying to game. Anybody run a Kickstarter project yet? Yeah, you run one? Yeah. They're a little tricky. I mean, you got to have a really great video, and there's a lot of marketing that goes into doing a good Kickstarter project. So I've been just studying the ecosystem of Kickstarter for a couple months.
You mostly need friends. We actually raised something like 60 or 70% of our goal
from friends.
Before we posted the video.
Yeah.
So I mean, but
friends.
You need some kind of seed that gets it going.
That's what I've heard too. That you've got your Kickstarter ends up being. Yeah. Yeah, sort of. I mean, over time, you can look at it and figure that stuff out pretty quickly, right? I mean, like, I know the limits of this thing. There's a white clip in one of those boxes.
NetFab does a pretty good job of that.
NetFab does a great job. Tricks? Yeah. You got to print it upside down. Yeah. Tony, this is this 3D scan cleanup. So it's a big problem when you're trying to clean things up. NetFab does an incredibly good job. And they got an iPhone app that I haven't adequately deployed its use in my life yet. But so yeah, there's cleanup stuff, and there's over time though, if you can have two heads on this, like the replicators are now, then you can print the support material. So somebody has the box with that. It's a white. It looks like an alien clip almost. I don't know if somebody pulled that out. This is like my first ridiculous. I'm not sure if I can do this. Yeah. So this is a surf clip rack that goes to a Honda like Element, right? And so he sent me his original, and I modeled that up and sent it back to him, and he's like, it works. He's in California, and on there's a piece that comes out in the middle to keep the two things from running together, from squishing together. And on there, because they don't have support material, in this case, printed that way, I needed to build that ramp. So if you look at that one, there's a ramp in there to support the tab that sticks out to keep the two pieces together. So again, now that conversation is happening in my head at every lunch meeting, you walk into any room and you're like, and then this is this printing, modeling, right, three-dimensional imagination world that we live in. Okay, so this is, I wanted to be able to show it, print something. Here's the something that it printed. It existed before we started today, but not like this, in this form. And we think that's pretty exciting, right? And when it comes right down to it, I think if you can let this into like your life in terms of how you think about objects, Thingiverse is the beginning. It's like Napster for objects, right? And at some point that'll happen, right? Nike comes out with a new shoe, and if you can print all the materials in the shoe, somebody's going to scan it quick. right, on the 3D spin scanner thing, and then it's just going to go boom, and it's going to be everywhere. And I think that really starts to screw with commerce, right? Yeah, well, you wouldn't download a car. There's some crazy things with sand and marble. There's an Italian guy. I mean, once you get into this, it's like every article under the sun starts coming at me from people who are. There's a guy who's using sun to print sand. There's that guy. There's another guy that's built. It's awesome. I don't know. More ladies need it so we can go. There's a lady who's doing. The nervous system people are actually, it's a husband-wife or boyfriend-girlfriend or something. And she brings a lot of interesting, you wouldn't end up with that kind of jewelry with that organic form. He's the technical background, the code to it. She's not bad at it either if you go and meet those guys. But there's some really cool kind of like nature to plastic, right? Anyway, I don't know what I was talking about. The guy in Italy who's starting to build houses, like buildings and rooms. So they'll set up components in different, right? They'll basically build a print head over the top of where they want a room to be. And then hit print, right? And they're pumping marble dust and like water and glue together at the same time, right? And so you get these structures that are like buildings. So hopefully that was enough of a kind of a mind jack to make it worth coming today, right? At least to this session. Yeah, so a roll of this, if you buy from Makerbot. Okay, so now we can start getting into like ridiculous technical things. There are a lot of places to get the filament. Yeah, $10 to $15 a pound. This is a kilogram for 30 to 50, 55, depending on what you want it green, do you want it to glow in the dark, do you want it red, do you want, all of these things are options that are available to you. The biggest challenge is the variation in thickness across the length of the filament. Because it's driving against a pressure kind of step motor, and if the filament changes sizes, then the amount that's extruding under it, right, doesn't have the same pressure point on it, so you get these kind of weird movements in your prints. So I pay up for the better stuff because also the inside of the tube that drops into the nozzle can end up with a lot of like extra just goo on it. Like there's like you can blow it out and keep it clean and all this other stuff. All kinds of people. I don't know if you're following that Google group are like, it's not printing. And it's usually get some acetone and clean it out really good because the step driver is knocking off material because your filament was weird. So so that's an example of at least 6 to 7 hours, right, after having the problem before you're able to go, oh, that's what's going on. Now multiply it by 25 to 30, and that's your experience with the Thing-O-Matic. This replicator that they have, you don't have to put together. It ships to you. It's ready to go. You can put 2 heads on it. You run some filament in it. It's much more out of the box. Start hucking files at this thing, and you're going to get objects back. So they've advanced it pretty dramatically, Makerbot. If you're interested in, today I would buy a replicator versus a Thing-O-Matic. I'm really, really happy to have had the painstaking process of becoming intimately connected emotionally to this thing by tinkering and being frustrated. And I know all the parts of this, right? It's tuned in. And like tensions on belts and all of that stuff starts to impact how circular your circles print, right? And you're like, I got to find a way to make sure that's the right tension and then keep it that tension across time. The new replicators, you're going to lose a lot of that burden, that friction in the process of printing. So, yeah. So I started with SketchUp, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's very easy to start. It's also very easy to create open elements in your walls, right? That when you print to this thing, it gets very frustrated with. Okay, so I've become fairly efficient in keeping SketchUp models solid. Okay, I would move to Rhino as fast as possible. If you can either stomach it or get into the alpha, I don't know if they call it an alpha or a beta now for their new version on the Mac. You can actually get the entire Rhino suite. There's an open version? Yep. And now there's, any other number of SolidWorks deals with the biggest problem of SketchUp, right? You end up with these openings in your walls. SolidWorks solves for that problem, but ends up offering you a different set of tools. And it costs $5,000. Yeah, so there's a free and finicky, which I think is, and then there's much more aggressive and more exciting. But look, if you're going to get one of these and you're going to print on a regular basis, you're going to spend a lot of time learning the software, or you're just going to print a lot of other people's stuff, right? Or you're going to print small stuff, or you're going to. My print or my modeling skills definitely limit the things that I can get printed on this, right? So now I'm spending much more time learning the software. And the fact that this sits there and just kind of looks at me and goes like, what are you going to print? Right? Like, hey, tell me what to do, is a constant, right? The potential exists that I could have an object tonight, and that's usually enough, right? Okay, go ahead. Hey, hold on. I don't know when this ends. Somebody else? Oh, so we're done, huh? Oh,
3 minutes.
Oh, 35?
Yeah.
Well, somebody look.
14 minutes.
Okay. Well, it's a long day, and we're in the afternoon, and lunch has happened. So if you're interested in kind of in ditching, go for it, and I'll keep with a Q&A here on this. My hope is I run the Makerbot has. Let's see where it is. So this is the blog for this, right? All of the objects. I just grab a photo and post it here. MSP Makerbot. This is a Pella door clip. A buddy of mine. He's like, Pella wants $35 for this thing. I was like, meet me for a coffee. And we modeled it sitting in the coffee shop. I went home and printed it and shipped it to him. So, yeah, the model was 20 minutes and the print was 12. Yeah, so even faster than 12. Except for the post office. We're 3 events in on this MSP 3D idea. I have a meetup group. So if you go to Meetup and look for MSP 3D, it's just an enthusiast group, basically to be able to do this. Okay, people want to see what these things do. Let's do that. The bigger hope is to meet other people like the ones that I've met today, that actually have bots, because this gets more fun when there's more of them, right? So maybe check that out if you're interested. We'll have meetings and meetups around this. And I riff, which is it's a product. It's like a blog. Let's call it a blog. On Makerbot stuff here at josephrueter.riffer.com/Makerbot. And then one of our users of this alpha, Riffer Alpha, is out of Chicago, and he doesn't have a printer yet. He has one on order. And his is called Beep Boop Print. And you can follow this if you just shove your email in here, and when he posts a new one, he'll get one. But he's running around grabbing all the best articles on 3D printing and talking about what he's thinking about that article, right? So there's 2 3D printing resources if you're interested in that over time. And we can just open it to questions, which I think this whole thing has been. Hope that's been helpful. Yeah. Question was, have you flipped it to become a scanner? Have I flipped this one to become a scanner? No. So some people, it was like one of those, there's a person who printed an injection mold for a headphone jack top, right? So like his headphones had fallen apart, so he printed the negative space that he wanted and then squirted it with whatever material as his headphones was in there, and then pop the, right? I was like, oh. I had thought we're just making plastic things until I started thinking about building your own molds for other things. And like that's like, oh, we are on the way now, right? I was like, yes! But yeah. So the question is other materials inside of the models. There are insertions of pennies and other things that happen to make bottle openers and the like. It's because the plastic isn't strong enough to make the leverage, but you can get enough shell around it to. I have not, primarily because as you build your G code that's coming out of your, you don't know where your plot head's going to go. I have talked about, rather than like inserting, yeah, you've got one. Here, bottle opener. Rather than inserting, totally. There's your penny. Rather than inserting like something and letting it print around it, building a void and waiting for just the right time to drop like a magnet in, right? And then let it print over the top and you got a magnet in there, right? Then this stuff can start to kind of like weirdly hang together. So that's I've gone that far. There's a number of ball bearing stuff. Yeah. So you print it halfway and then you drop your ball bearings in and then it prints around it, right? Curious? Yeah, we're definitely on our way, right? I mean, we're on our way. Go ahead.
Recurring costs other than.
So the energy is, what is it, 400? No. I don't know, wherever that box is. What's that say on the side of it? 400 and, your finger's on it. 460 watts. What is that, like a tower and a half? Something like that.
It's a heck of a tower.
It's a heck of a tower. Tower and a half, I said. Maybe? Roughly?
The laptop draws about 20 watts.
Yeah, well, it's an aggressive tower.
It's like a space heater.
You want to go to places like Best Buy and plug in, right? Like, here we go! Your material is, I don't know. I think I did the math on this in terms of grams, and it was like $6, something in that range. Yeah, the clip. Well, you can start doing the math, right? So if you sell it for $10, there's maybe a half a penny in here, penny. So then the load is on your time, and time becomes the problem, right? So I've connected with a number of different shops and built some jewelry, right? Like different kinds of things that ladies would like. My wife likes, and messed around a lot with the sanding process. So how do you get a finish on here that somebody wants to wear next to like as a bracelet or something like that? I think I've spent an uncomfortable amount of time trying to get that smooth. I've got it to the point now where I'm pretty happy with it, and I can hand it to somebody and they don't know that it was 3D printed. That's kind of cool, right? But I'm negotiating with them. They don't really see all the time in the sanding. Right? It becomes a problem. But so the cost of the material isn't actually the problem as much as the time it takes to make it worth doing if it's not just a hobby. How about that?
Are there any other costs like
Well, so as you start, you're probably going to be very disappointed with your heated build platform, and you're probably going to be very, very disappointed with your automated build platform. Okay, so you guys know about this. Have you made one? There. So then you get like an $8 chunk of aluminum right? And then you get some plastic, and you're like, I'll add some plastic to that, and then you're like, well, it'd be great to be able to see inside. So then you get the lights, right? The lights aren't stock, and then you get but it's not aggressive. I mean, you're looking at we're under $220, $2,200, something in there. I mean, it's not cheap. I wouldn't call it that, but it's approachable at least now. Yeah, so they're selling the kit now for $1,000. Is that $1,000? It's right in that range. I think you'd probably want to update maybe $100 more and like other stuff, and leave the automated build platform out of it. In my personal opinion. and the replicator's up at 1700, and they'll ship that to you built. And it has the capacity to, the replicator, the heads move, and the build platform stays fixed. So you don't have, like I was talking on the space shuttle, the same problem with the wobbliness on the... And then you can change how fast it prints, right? And all the controls, like once you get into Replicator, do you guys want to see this? Like I was a little... I just wanted to print stuff. And you started to feel like it was a lot more intense. So this is, you guys familiar with the Glyph guys? Or is it Studio Neat? Is that what it was? So I saw this thing and I was like, well, how hard is that, right? So I kind of looked at it and pulled it over. So then you can easily, and I don't know that they care, do they? I don't know. Here's one, right? And you just start printing them. So you come in here and you get to your G code, and now this is where you're picking all of your profiles. So if am I on an automated build platform? Is it heated? Do I have a step extruder? I'm on 25 here because I'm really, really happy with the kind of, I'm really happy with how the prints are being printed, right? Now they're at 20, is it 9? 30, maybe? 32? So I'm a couple softwares back, primarily because you've got to dig into this, get at the boards and upgrade the firmware on the boards. And I don't know if you guys, if you have one of these, I've beat my head against the wall a couple times too many trying to get the software to upload to the, you got to push some buttons like right at the right time. And I have not done it successfully yet. So that's where I'm at. But this is where we start to get crazy, right? Absolutely everything is controllable. So if you want access to, I'm not sure what bottom means in carve and camber and slash. Temperature makes sense, but what's oozebane? Now, if you're really into this, that Google group has a series of people who know intimately what that is. And so you can, I don't know what it is. No, I don't really care. So here's what I did. This is me, I mean, I'm happy to learn. So I found, well, what is it? Generate G code. Where's the, this Print-O-Matic. So look, here's the deal. Like this is how it downloads to you. You know this, right? And so then you have to go through the edit stuff, and I'm on like Wiki looking up oozebane and whatever else. And then I met another guy who's like, well, you've got a step extruder. Just click right here. And now you've got all the controls that kind of matter on a regular basis in this little drop down. And I'm like, yes! And I don't touch edit much anymore. Again, because my goal is different. So then the question becomes, what's your goal? What do you think about having this thing around? I would say, I looked at it and said, the world's changing because of these things, right? Just that it exists and it sits on my credenza next to me and it like chills and it's there. It's constantly asking me to jump forward into the future. And hopefully this little tutorial will ring in your mind down the line and ask you to wonder how to jump into the future with it. Okay, so fumes is the question. I wouldn't know. I kind of stay away from it. So this is like, I don't know, name any other really aggressive debate that's worth debating. And you have both sides inside this community, right? So every once in a while in the Google group or the forum, somebody will talk about the fumes and people will just go crazy, right? On both sides of it. So, I mean, I put mine by the window and I crack it when it's running and I have a fan. Because here's the thing. If it's printing and you do this, you're going to feel it after about 10 minutes. You're like, right? So there's something there. Go ahead.
If I send you a broken part, how can you print something that is not broken?
Yeah.
But if it's shattered.
Yeah, the broken part. Yeah. The question is if you have a broken part. Yeah. So all of this is in degrees of complexity, right? Like if there's a lot of stuff missing from like a house explodes and like you look at it and there's no pictures of what the side of the house used to look like, but this side's fine, like a tornado goes through or something. You have to kind of guess. Same stuff with these objects, right? So, and I knew that the world changed when my mother-in-law starts coming to me with print requests, right? That, I was like, really? So, yeah, I mean, the implications start to get pretty aggressive. I imagine you have something that's broken. As an operator, I have a bunch of stuff that's broken too. And I'm like, I'll fix something for that. So the question becomes, what degree of closeness does it have to be to be original? And what's so nice is that once you get the files, you just print it, and if it doesn't work, you kind of edit it a little bit, and then, that didn't work, and you print another one, right? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tons. So I know a couple, because of this thing, I've met some industrial designers, not students. I've met a bunch of students doing this too, but other industrial designers in town who have had contracts with everybody under the sun. And they have bots, right? I mean, I met these people, and they're doing prototypes for stuff, and then they go to their contacts in China and get them mass produced. Yep. Yeah, that or go to proto labs. So there's like micro runs like this, right? Then there's these medium runs that kind of the bigger shops look at you and go, oh, we're going to touch that, right? And then there's the big shop. Then there's the like proto labs. It's going to do, if you need 1,000 of something, right? That's going to take some time on here, right? So you can easily outsource. There's a lot of outsourcing places, and they'll just ship stuff back to you, right? Go ahead. What's that? This can only print plastic. This particular printer, it's an extrusion printer. Hey guys, thanks very much, huh? Enjoy.